Hello, I'm rossefatale. In this series, we will explore the struggles and achievements of women living in Estonia. This includes both locals as well as migrants who reside in this northern Baltic country. In this episode, you'll get to know Anna, a scholar, businesswoman, and mother.
So my name is Anna and I'm originally from Krakow in Poland. I'm 33. I've been living here 12 years now. In terms of accomplishment, I think is that just the fact that I'm capable of doing these things while having kids. There are more projects happening now. Like I also travel for work, I teach abroad, I do consultancies and stuff like this. I have 4 kids. I have them in pairs. So I have 2 and then I had a break and then I had 2. This was happening in the different stages of my life, right? So I came here, I worked on the embassy and then I had my first kid and then I never returned to the embassy. Decided in the meantime that I would go to university. I did my degree. And then I immediately after that I got a job at the very same university. So I was kind of developing myself and finding myself or redefining myself while having small kids, which is that's hard part to kind of try to redefine yourself from what you had done before, and now you need to be something different, but also in the same time you have this completely new role which you have no clue, nobody ever told you to be a parent. So you kind of have this parallel track going on, what's happening with me professionally, what's happening with me, family wise and privately. And I was divorcing, I had depression. So all these kind of things, and while you were having this, you are also supposedly, because I work at university, you need to develop, you need to provide. There are indicators that are judging or evaluating you. Something that, took a lot of effort. Sometimes people ask me, how do you manage? You have kids and you just do this project and you have your company and this. And people ask me, how do you manage? And then I think very often I have a feeling I want to say I don't. Because very often is that you just need to learn. It's like a school of giving up, because you need to give up a lot of things in order to do the other things. Overall, I think I always suggest if there's anything to do in Tallinn is to come and have babies, because not only the level of care, but also the maternity leave that you're receiving here. You have access to generally comparably quite good medical care. Further, being a woman, to have the chance to get pregnant and have kids, I think that you are being taken care of. I'm not talking about only from the perspective of being from Poland. My sister lives in England, I have friends in Sweden, I have friends in Brussels, in Belgium, so I kind of have this comparison. What you're being offered while in hospital, I think it's amazing. You're actually filling in a paper when they ask you whether you want music or do you want us to clean your baby after delivery. Okay, yeah, sure, or no, what should I choose? Do you want us to be in the room or do you want to be with your on your own with your husband? Where would they ask you? The other thing is what is happening, because the moment shit hits the fan and something happens, everything on the side and the priority is on the baby, and that's really important. So the moment my son is born and they see that something is not right, everyone aside and the focus is there. The maternity leave that you're receiving here is exceptional. I'm not sure if it's the longest in Europe. It would be pretty safe to say that it's one of the longest in Europe. And still, it's actually prioritizing mothers. Father can still take this leave. So now it's the option. And then actually now new law, they can at some point in time, they can take it in parallel or divide it actually expand it for 3 years. But it is prioritizing moms. And that, if not the law, but then the society, it's still prioritizing that it's a mom, and you choose yourself how you actually interpret it. Is it it's this sexist because they say it's mom needs to stay home with the kid, and but on the other hand, it is actually kind of encouraging that that's the norm, is that mom is staying, so just enjoy this norm, and that's how much individual case it is. Being born in here and you automatically being born to 2 languages, and you just acquire more, 3rd, 4th. So you are having, and comparing to, for example, my friends in England, being a woman is for me equal being a man. So at the same time I can talk about being a person from Estonia. So I start from the fact that it's really, for me as a foreigner in here and a woman, so women foreigner, it's hard to kind of differentiate like a reasoning why these things are happening to me. Because is it because I'm a woman, or is it because I'm Polish, or is it because I'm half blonde or something? I don't know. So I don't really have this, because I am the set of qualities, and I don't know why I'm being for example discriminated. I did experience discrimination with my work, so obviously there are things that are happening to me, and I don't know why. But the thing that I experienced, and it's very weird because I experienced it from other women, is when I had a kid, the first one. And you are completely green. You have no clue what to do, how to do. Even if you can read all the books that there are, and you will know nothing. So, and I felt this very weird pressure that you need to do everything in a certain way. So you need to eat certain food, and you need to do specific way, and you need to breastfeed, and you need to carry your baby on this, baby Bjorn everywhere, and you cannot, this is wrong, this is right, this stroller is bad, this stroller is right, such a limitation of what's right and what's wrong. And it came from women, so it came from kind of people that you are seeking comfort and advice, and then I don't know whether, I don't think they did it purposefully, but that you need to do this way, this is the only right way. If you're not doing it this way, then you are a bad mom. Nobody is going to tell you that you are a bad mom, but if someone is telling you that this is the right way, obviously any other way would deem to be wrong. Like, I had a really very physical problem when my son was born. He was in intensive care, didn't take him out from the incubator, I couldn't feed him. And I was already so indoctrinated that I started, like, I had the breakdown. They had to call psychologists, because I was so into, like, what if I cannot feed him later? Because now they're feeding him with the bottle, and what if he doesn't take a breast later? And like, I was so much, and it wasn't even an extent that, I will not be able to give him what is allegedly the best, or like what is the best. But it was like, I will not be able to breastfeed, and that's within this kind of agenda or whatever there is there that you need to do, because it's only when you do that, then you are worthy, or like you are the good mom. And I didn't realize that. I realized it long later, before, like after my second kid. And then when I realized, I was so pissed. Like, I was like really? It was horrible, because it was from other women. And it was like unwritten. If it's scientifically said, of course, like breastfeeding is scientifically proven to be the best option, but feeding with a bottle is not worse. It's not bad, right? So I'm like, now when lots of friends are asking me, because they're having kids now, like a lot. And I'm so careful thinking about this, like to tell people what's better. Like, I mean, what's better is what suits you best, as long as it's healthy. It's always a discussion, It's a discussion since the beginning of the 20th century. So obviously there are discussions on the activist level, like, women rights and the problems that you're experiencing in here. But there's also a discussion that is kind of in opposition, or seemingly in opposition of that whether it's not, whether it's necessary, or why is it even happening. So I think there's as many discussions as many people there are, and every person has an opinion on a certain topic, more or less complicated, or more informed opinion or less informed opinion. And I can only tell you what I heard. But I heard one people like fighting for certain specific rights, and people who are kind of questioning, like, why are you doing that? I think it rather comes from the fact that when you hear a word feminism or feminist, you have a quite negative connotation to that. And it's not only here, it's like a general opinion. So whenever you think feminist, you have the militant feminist in your vision, right? I think the general public doesn't really understand that being a feminist is just standing for a certain concept of everyone being equal. Unfortunately, this concept of everyone being equal somehow has a name derived from femin. And I think that's the problem, you know, the name is the problem. If you'd call it like equalizer, whatever, I think you might have suddenly come up with the idea that most of the population here is for equal rights in some way. And again, I'm not a scholar in the field. There are more people who know more than me. But I'm pretty sure that the reservations are coming from the fact that the feminist has a negative connotation. Again, I think it's hard to make friendships when you are in a certain age. And I am in that age that is hard because you have a job, you have kids. So my experiences are so that when I was studying, it was easy because you are suddenly put into specific group of people and you are forced to do something together. So do what you want, you are becoming kind of closer with some people, but that's pretty much it. I mean, I had some other friends as well, but they are pretty random places or through someone. So I cannot answer whether it's hard to make friendship in Estonia because it's hard for me to begin with to have friends because of how busy I am. And I think, yeah. I would say that I'm pretty lonely because after I take care of my kids and I do my work, I don't really hang out with people at the moment. I don't have time capacity and energy as well. Capacity to really like go out and hang out. I mean, not considering even what's happening now, but so I would say that I'm lonely, but I don't really feel that. Like sometimes it's like, do I have a confidant that I could talk to? And I do have them in Poland, so I don't feel like that. But maybe there's like, I'm thinking maybe there's another layer to that. Like, you know, we human beings, they have this need for sense of belonging, that you belong somewhere. And it's not geographical, it's not cultural, I think. Is that you can recognize yourself with others. And whether there are others that experience the same thing or whether there are others living in the same place, these are different things, not necessarily need to be very connected. But I think that there is a certain level of point of reference that there's in any given time, if I'm experiencing something, there will be someone who can refer to, like reflect or like refer to that they've been through something similar. And I think maybe if you don't communicate enough with people, you don't really understand whether these people have experiences or not. But I also like it's a level of listening, like, you know, we just listen and download and then we forget, or you actually listen and you can, you know, empathizing, feeling what people say. And only by this kind of listening you can actually think, do I relate to this person or not? I don't think that we have time for this kind of empathizing thinking nowadays, nowadays. I don't think there's any difference. I mean, in Poland, that's something my husband noticed. You know, he was being brought up, the first husband. He was brought up here, and we were traveling a lot to Poland. Although he's half Ukrainian, he was brought up in this Ukrainian environment. We're traveling a lot to Poland, and something that he kind of pointed out is that much more people live with their parents in Poland than in Estonia. And now the problem is with the statement is that it's like 15 years old. So I'm not sure, you know, there's a little bit different generation now. So now there's lots of 30 years old still living with parents. So I cannot really grasp it, like I cannot put my finger on that, whether there's a difference or not. For sure, in Poland, you know, especially, for example, in my house, we have a house and there are 3 generations living in that. So you kind of build a house knowing that your mom will live in it. That's interesting, I think, you know, when there's, and not always, of course, I have lots of new like friends who are couples and building houses for their own. But in my house, it was like that when my grandma was building it, she wasn't really building it by herself, but when she was planning it, she was planning it to have 3 generations. So maybe that's the difference, but I don't know. That's something that I also noticed, for example, in Greece, in Italy. Well, it's there's a saying that if you want to devaluate a profession, let women do it. So, and that happened with, for example, accountancy. It used to be very male profession. Now it's predominantly female profession. That very same thing is happening in universities. University, beyond the dynamic and historical changes and reforms that happened in 21st century, in university you can see that there's more and more female, it's called like academics, but you can see the devaluation of the profession. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that female and women are not capable enough to withheld or like to maintain the level. It means that the moment women are starting to do something, the profession is not being regarded as much. Because if women can do it, anyone can do it. So that's not really so valuable profession. And that same thing is happening in academia, but in a very practical level. Like you have example of pandemic. I wrote an article about that. What happened? Like everyone is in lockdown, and all suddenly after a couple of months, the scientific journals started to realize that women are not submitting papers. And then like what's happening? Like women and men are home, and what turns out, even though both parents are home, it's usually a woman who is taking care of homeschooling, taking care of the house, and the man is actually doing the research. So imagine in an environment when you are very much evaluated based on how much papers you produce. You are now out of tracks for 2 years now, right? You cannot. I cannot produce a research. Like there's no. Like, please, I barely can manage with administrative, just putting grades in my house while having all the homeschooling happening. So and that's the problem with that, is that that's going to develop this gap, 2 years gap. You will see advancement. So my peers, my colleagues, male colleagues who manage to produce, they will have amount of papers, for example, that is allowing them to apply for professorship. I'm not going to be there. Like I'm not going to meet at the same time. Yeah, so there you go. That's a very, very vivid example of how, even the most egalitarian societies like Sweden, I think even in a situation when the woman was the main, how do you call it, bread earner, they're still performing relatively larger part of the house chores than men. So there you go, and it's automatic. Like these things are happening silently, and that also says a lot about women. Like they are just doing that because the shit needs to be done, right? You're not asking, you're doing it. Well, my sector is a bit complicated because I'm in education, but I also work in cultural field. So I'm researching the cultural field directly. So now you have these double words, whether it's academia and then you have cultural field. Now the cultural field, I'm talking about academia a bit, now I'm going to talk about cultural field. The cultural field is very interesting from the perspective of the gender balance, because there's prevailing amount of women working in culture in general, artists, like arts managers as well, so in this kind of more work of facilitating the arts. But there are more men in managerial positions, and nobody really knows why. It's not really yet so well researched. So that's a little bit of paradox. Having more women automatically because it's inherently humanities or social science. Having more women because of the field, so you need to be working with people requires empathy. Women are having scientifically more empathy, are more empathetic than men. That will be normal, that with people usually it's women who works, but somehow somewhere there is a glitch, because I guess maybe it is a problem with understanding what's leadership, and for many leadership it's management, which is not. So I guess somewhere alongside we kind of forgot to realize that leadership is about people as well, and that will turn out that women are also better because they're still better with people, right? yeah, culture I feel is very interesting from exactly from this point of view that more women, but in the end more men are managers.
What do you think of Anna's story? How was your experience with maternal care in Estonia? If you're a migrant, what sort of challenges have you faced while living here? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and ding the bell for future content. If you wish to support my work, feel free to leave a donation on the crowdfunding website Patreon. It's been Fatally Honest. Ciao.